The Great Awakening that everyone's talking about worldwide, the Great Awakening, or the consciousness, raising the consciousness. Well, there's an important video made about this. Awakening Mind. Awakening Mind you'll find on YouTube. And this will give you a better concept. You see, it's not about the consciousness, because the consciousness is unaware of the outside influences on our reality. So it's about being aware, awareness, being alert, alive, awake, and aware. I want to tell you something that's really critical, okay? And what I'm going to use here is a sense of humor, because it's the best way to deal with it. Okay, it's the best way to see things, right? Christ said, live every day as if it's your last, with a great sense of humor. And he had a pretty good sense of humor. He was also wild, and people didn't like him much because he sat with criminals and people suffering, and they didn't like that. But Christ was very open-minded, and he was a street teacher and a street warrior that lived with criminals and people suffering, and everybody was against that. But you know what? He had the divine power. I want to tell you a little story. They told you in 99 you're in post-human stage and you can't use your genetic process with ancestry tools since 1960. I just want to tell you something. When I was a child, or young, a teenager, hanging around with my mates, right? The first thing was, I told my mum about there was a moment in her life in 1945, World War II, 15 years before I was born. She said I was dreaming, but she was lying. She couldn't deal with it. It was her in her mum's arms in World War II shitting herself. She got bipolar, so did I, with genetic memory and genetic ancestry tools. She couldn't cure, I did, because I knew what went wrong. I had my genetic memory. I'll tell you something funny, right? Back in the early 70s, right, on the streets and in shopping centres, not on social media platform, all talk, no action. We saw people with mental telepathy, ESP, remote urine telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, and I mean bend the spoon. Bend the spoon, right, with their mind, with their power, divine power. Like a Shilla mastermind who has the divine power, right? They can master their mind, and some of them can levitate a 1-ton stone. So can our Aboriginal 500-year-old off the grid 10 feet tall. He has a divine power as well. And we found the last human beings born on Earth that can do what Christ can and more in DNA studies done with Jeremy Griffiths, who explains this perfectly correct. Who wrote the book Freedom, held by 16,000 to school in the world, the Holy Grail of Life. We're not breathing the Holy Breath of Life to recreate the sacred secretions, so we can all do what Christ can and more. I'll tell you something funny, but when I was young, right, okay, like you would ring your mate and say, hey, mate, what's up? I've got a bad gut feeling. Mate, I was just thinking about calling you. How did you know? I had a bad gut feeling and I thought about you at the same time. So we have codependent relationships, right? And we can feel each other at exactly the same time. And people are oblivious to this because they haven't got those abilities anymore. So my wife was 3,300 kilometres away, and one morning I woke up with a bad gut feeling and I felt sick in my stomach, and I rang her and said, hey, what's up? She said, I'd just been sick and threw up. How did you know? I said, I felt it. I feel sick in my gut. Bad gut feeling, and felt sick in my stomach and knew you threw up. With remote viewing and deja vu, to predict the future movement was going to happen. Yeah, back in the 70s, there was plenty of human beings left on Earth that can use their supernatural power with the spirituality, like ESP, mental telepathy, ESP, remote viewing, telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future event what's going to happen. Masterminds, geniuses that could use 100% of their brain, like you see in the movie Limitless, that no one can anymore. They can only 17% worldwide. You were told you were going backwards 40 years ago. You didn't believe in it. It became a concern in 99 in post-human stage. You were told your parents were crazy. They went in species in denial, and now 77% of all the kids in America is born with chronic diseases, right, with gene defects and mental disorders going through the roof and turbocharge rates, okay, because they've got no sixth sense. They sold their spirituality out from mentality, trapped in mentality with artificial intelligence worldwide. You take a look at every conscious worker in the world and raising their consciousness. None's got mental telepathy and ESP, remote neural telekinesis, levitation, spin bending, clock mining, folding space and time with deja vu to prevent what's going to happen and predict the future. Because they don't think clockwise and they're boiling your DNA. And consciousness didn't give them that ability because it trapped them in their mind the most. What do you think the Great Awakening is? Huh? With all your artificial grammar and atheism tools and what you select with light, power, energy, vibrations and frequencies, how come none of your species worldwide has any mental telepathy, ESP, remote neural telekinesis and folding space and time with deja vu and predict the future? Can't do what Christ can more in their own body and your own DNA with their genetic memory and genetic process with their ancestral tools. The last human being born on earth that can do that was born in 1960, and guess what? In my DNA, in a 34-year study and 16 years of DNA, I'm one of a kind with those abilities, with the most powerful genetic process and genetic memory that can prepare my DNA with all these tools by the biggest think tank in the world. And you know what's funny? I can mastermind use 100% of my brain, and I was always right about everything I said when people said I was a freak of nature. Because so artificial, trapped inside this Calvin mentality. Now when I look at New Age today, the most artificial human beings on earth that depends on what evolution, mutation and grammar selected, right, with unnatural selection with the voice mind that's able to do that. That's been ultimately designed for extinction. So they don't know what the crossover is with rebirth, with the natural process with divine intervention and divine power to command nature. Yet I have that in my DNA. We're the most powerful combination on earth. And everyone throws stones at me because they're jealous, spiteful cows, living in their own truth, trapped with competitive behavior without a care factor. Because they can't feel the truth anymore. They come to their own conclusion with reason, my voice mind that's able to do that. And only believe in their own truth and do not know what they do anymore because they're trapped in their mind and can only 7 to 15% of the brain. And every human being on earth is using artificial intelligence with grammar. He said, sees it in the documents and depend on science and evolution mutation and don't even know what they're doing because they don't have any real faith to use their natural selection and natural order in their own DNA. Their natural organic maskers with their genetic process where it's coded in their DNA that they can do every single thing that I can do and more in their own DNA. But they don't know how to because they have amnesia, right? They're dormant. Their 24th chromosomes and the 23rd chromosome trapped inside. You can see inside the research, so they can't use their supernatural power with all the grammar they select with artificial intelligence. All engineered like this. The Great Awakening is being aware of the outside influence that controls your reality and why you can't master your own mind to use 100% of your brain and all your godlike power coded in your own DNA with genetic memory and genetic tools with super-like power, supernatural power, superhuman abilities that Christ can do and more. And it's only a handful of us left in the world can do that. And we have rejected the most by the whole world. Imagine what it feels like to be in our footsteps when we know how artificial the whole human being society is and what tools they select, with the grammar they select, that doesn't give them the intuitive power, codependent power to command nature. Because they haven't got that relationship, they're trapped in their skull and their mind, in a personality mentality. They can't think outside the mind that Christ can and more. So they don't know what's going on because they're not in the primal state, in their innocence. They're trapped in a personality with mentality, like a Hollywood character, American dreamer, self-centered ego, self-centered behavior, capitalizing their own personality with their own opinions, trapped into themselves, and do not know what they do. Haven't got a clue. Don't believe in the truth, only what they want to believe in, because the voice of mind will tell them to do that in a Christ consciousness that doesn't exist. Never did. Everyone talks about Christ consciousness. The consciousness developed by the Rockefellers in 1640 into the conscious singularity by WF. You know what it is? Have you Googled consciousness? It's a mental event, a mental process, an illusion, imagination, and it's not spirituality, it's mentality. That's why every human being on earth, their voltage reliability is anti-clockwise in their DNA and their aura, and their body cells got corruption in the daytime, and they've got more defective genes and mental disorders than ever, living their own truth, manifest their own truth, and come to their own conclusion with reasoning in a 5-sense world. They don't even know what they're doing. They can only 7 to 10% of the brain and 99%. 1% can use up to 15%. But it's only a handful of people that can mastermind and use 100%. And they think outside the mind with the universal language, with codependent feelings, and that kind of relationship with the universal language that the others don't have. You can see in the movie Limitless how you can master your mind 100% on a drug, and your mind don't know how to do it because your brain fogged. Your brain was between 85 and 93% of your brain that can't work. So you can't think outside the mind and use your natural abilities at all with your natural selection, natural order in your own DNA. And it's a natural selection taking place right now. I think what's so funny is listen to everybody in the world and listen to all the crap coming out of their fucking mouth. They haven't got any divine intervention to command nature at all. Right? My DNA in the most powerful documents in the world proves I can do what Christ can do and more, and no one believes in it. That's how dumb they are, that their voice and mind controls them that much to prevent them from doing this. And that proves that you're nefarious, because the voice of mind would tell you anything you want to believe in a comfort zone that will prevent you from doing every single thing that Christ can and more, and never suffer any mental disorders and defects ever again. No more confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia. No more stress and anxiety. No more living in your own truth. No more living in a comfort zone. But being free with the most powerful liberation you've ever seen in your life, with the most powerful confirmation ever discovered in human history. Freedom from every single thing you suffer, and a death experience that controls you, with stress and anxiety, going out of control, in a delusional parasite, delusional parasitosis worldwide, manifested into their mind, program engineered by the people that run this world, which is the Antichrist, atheism, evolution mutation, artificial intelligence, and that's what you're designed on, from generation to generation, by atheists, anti-clockwise, with science. And you don't think you're affected by this? Then why don't you have mental telepathy, yes, people promote you in telekinesis, levitation, spin-bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future, but what's going to happen? Why don't you have your natural abilities with your supernatural power, God-like power? Fuck, man. I've been going up my whole life been told my whole life I'm an idiot, I need to take drugs, and I'm a freak of nature. Because everyone lies about me. And they lie about us the most. The ones that can harness the power with true power to command nature. I brought someone back to life in 1992, Kirsten Ashley, Ipswich Hospital, 7 beer reports on CCTV. She writes the most powerful poem to do that and read the one and only. And they did a study in this. I am the one and only. With DNA to back it up, the one and only that could bring her back to life with CCTV and 7 beer reports. When she died, flatline, narcane, taken to hospital, fighting for her life, took enough drugs to kill 50 people. That gave her 0% chance of living, but worked on her frantically. When she flatlined in hospital, her body lifted 8 inches off the bed, and her heart monitor came back on. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, and she lives to write the most powerful poem in 2003, the one and only worldwide #1 for 8 months, and they interviewed her. She said, I'm the one and only. And their DNA proves, on the study done, I am the one and only that can do that, with the most powerful confirmation and that kind of divine intervention that took place in hospital. Because I can use my natural abilities. I can use my natural selection, and I have faith in my biological genes that God gives us this power in our own DNA to do what Christ can and more. And if I can bring someone back to life, like this, then remember something. I can do what you cannot do. And every single person lies about this because they're jealous, spiteful, egotistical people that have no idea what they're doing to themselves. Living in their mind with a voice mind that will put them in a comfort zone in their consciousness, a mental event, a mental process, an illusion of imagination, and that illusion of imagination prevents them from being able to do this. They're not aware of the outside inputs that controls the reality when they can't master their mind with their natural abilities. And I was put through this path with UAP, unexplained aerial phenomenon, and a massive divine intervention and DNA studies with a massive transformation in my own DNA in the biggest study ever done. The mind does not know what we're doing. The mind prevents you from having your natural abilities with natural selection and natural order. A God-given gift that's in your own DNA with genetic memory and a genetic process with your ancestor tools. You can do every single thing that Christ can, and every person in the world will lie to you, and so will the voice of mind to prevent you from doing this. That's why no one can do it. No matter what comes to their mouth, they all die prematurely from stress-related diseases because they're controlled by stress. In the greatest delusion ever in human history. In the 70s, where people can mastermind and people that crossed over through the rebirth, now there's no one that's crossed over through the rebirth. No one. Just delusional people living in their own truth and cannot use the natural process and go to work, pay the bills, do what they're told, and they all do what they're told with the voice of mind that tells them to do that when they think critically inside their conscious mind. They can't think instinctively outside the mind. And when they can't use the natural process with their natural cells in life, they cannot do what Christ can anymore, but it's in their DNA with genetic memory and genetic ancestry tools. When they cross over and go through natural selection and dedicate themselves, remember it took Moses 40 years? And Jeremy gives us it will take decades. 99% of people think they're going to learn overnight because their mindset fast track into nowhere, but they're in extinction and think they know overnight. People are massively delusional, living in comfort zones and just jump into another comfort zone, no matter what. Just find another comfort zone and then they think they know and deceive themselves that much non-stop. But they cannot do what Christ can. They have never crossed over back in their primal state to control their business from the outside in, and they've got no comprehension of this. Look at Philip and Tom's testimony today. Look what they discovered. Listen to what they say. They dedicated for this. 99% of people think they're going to learn overnight in a comfort zone because they don't have the patience, and patience a virtue. That's where great things come from. When you don't have patience, patience is a virtue because that's where great things come from. But you have no patience. You're fast track into your own extinction with your own mentality and your own truth, with your own opinions. And you just find another comfort zone without realizing it. Until you go through the natural selection and the crossover and go through the light at the end tunnel, you'll never see the truth and you'll never know. You'll never see the truth and you will never get the confirmation and you'll never know until that moment. Until you cross over and stick your head through the light in the tunnel that Plato describes in 15 books and Jeremy Gibbons describes, it may take decades. May take decades. And for most of you out there, you'll be lucky if you even go back to your primal state, right, with the genetic process, when you live so much in your mind, fast track into nowhere, in your consciousness, so deep in your consciousness, in your mentality, that you do not know what you do. You only think you do. Your mind will deceive you that much and prevent you from going through this. And believe me, it's a lot tougher than you think. Your mind and every human being around you will do everything in their power to put you in another comfort zone or in their comfort zone or their truth or their opinions. And trust me, only a handful of people ever discover this. Only a handful ever. Christ and only a few people are the only ones that knew. Christ. Jeremy Griffiths tells you only a handful of people ever discovered this. And most people never will because they live in denial. A species in denial, trapped into their own mentality. Winoff stands at Oxford University, you can see on YouTube, right? Oxford University interview. Go look. He says only Christ and a handful of people knew how to do this. He says you got to think instinctively with your 6th sense, 7th, 8th, 9th, 32 senses, man, 27 biofuels that you're not using. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th sense. Think outside the mind instinctively, like they tell you in the Matrix. It's not mentality. It's not inside your consciousness mentality. It's being aware of the outside influence that controls your reality so you can go into natural selection with divine power that gives you the God-given gift to command nature. Divine power to command nature. Can you imagine that you have 10 times more fruit, 10 times more love, 10 times more everything? The placebo effect is 10 times more powerful than the reality you're trapped into, and you're not even aware of it. Your faith system is so powerful with a relationship. When you go back in your innocence and back in selflessness, you have no idea what you're missing out on. And I don't want you to miss out. The Father doesn't want you to miss out. You're doing this yourself, preventing, right, from discovering the most unbelievable time to be alive in human history. Christ has a kingdom waiting for you that you're not aware of. I am. And when you don't know and you haven't got that confirmation and a divine intervention with the most powerful confirmation, the most powerful clarification, if you haven't got that, you have no idea what you're missing out on. Your mind prevents you from knowing this. And it's powerful. It is so powerful. It is the liberation you have ever dreamt about, right? Do not fall in a comfort zone. Do not deceive yourself. Patience is a virtue. Live every day as if you last with a great sense of humour. I used to ring my mate and say, mate, what's up? I just fell over. I just had an accident. Why, what's up? Mate, I knew you had an accident. I had this feeling. We used to have that kind of relationship with everyone, with a universal power, codependent relationship where we can master our mind and use 100% of our God-given power. Hey, what's up? I had a bad gut feeling that something bad happened to you in your life today. Mate, my mum just died. Fuck, man, I'm really sorry. I had a bad feeling, man. Someone died. You know what I mean? Your power can prevent something from happening, right? Where you can see dimensionally with the ripple effect where you know the outcome. Every decision made has a terrible outcome, but you have patience and virtue, and you can see the ripple effect 64 steps ahead with deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen, so you know what the outcome is. So you can change all the circumstances with remote viewing and deja vu, so you know that none of these things are going to work because everyone's fast into nowhere with their psychological behavior and can only use 10% of their brain. When you use 100% with patience and virtue, you know how to do something they don't with patience in such a way that the outcome becomes perfect without any side effects. That's why people followed me. The underground world, the biggest masterminds, the most powerful people in the underground world looked up to me because I could resolve every problem. And we stopped gang killing and violence to the lowest level in 30 years. And mental disorders and defects and the whole lot. People had more faith in me because I had the solution they couldn't work out. God gives you that gift. That's why a Godfather has always been the most powerful father ever in your ministry. That uses the right tools where everybody looks up to the Godfather, because the Godfather knows how to resolve every single problem and put everyone together without the outcome, with real love, confrontation, love. And what does a Godfather always say? Follow your feelings, man. Follow your gut feeling. God gave you that gift. Don't listen to the cops. Don't listen to education. Don't listen to the system. They're all liars, control freaks, the whole goddamn lot. And now everyone on the social media platform wants to be like them, control freaks, living in their own truth, just like their politicians and their cops, with their controlling, authoritarian, self-centered, egotistical opinions in their own truth. And that's how every Westerner is today on a screen. Just like their cops and politicians who are atheists, who thinks they're God's given gift to mankind and going to save humanity. Like Bill Gates, like all these species, that's going to save the world with their artificial intelligence, and then you're going to save the world with your artificial intelligence and your evolution mutation in your grammar that you select with yourself. Don't tell me you're in the Christ image when you live in Christ's consciousness that doesn't exist with your mentality. Your inverted mentality. You live in a 5 sense world with IQ. You can't feed two wolves at the same time. Known fact, always has been. Go back to your spirituality and reject your mentality, or stay where you are and you'll never know the truth. You'll never wake up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap, and God will never give you a divine intervention, a confirmation. He will never give you the godlike power. It's a natural selection. So none of your religious, political behavior, New Age cults, or anyone on the screen, it's natural because they're post-transhuman, right, trapped in their inverted mentality into themselves. They cannot do what Christ can and more. They're not in the Christ image and innocent with divine power to command nature. They're all filthy, low-life liars worldwide, like they're scholars and they're top educational people in the world that lives in their own mind, right? They cannot do what I can do. They're jealous, spiteful liars all over the world and credit thieves and content thieves. Be aware of that. Every Westerner on the screen is a content thief and a liar, and he said, she said, and they mentally resonate because they're trapped in mentality. And that's their reality that prevents them from having the God-given gift, divine power to command nature, with a divine intervention, a divine confirmation, and a massive clarification. Watch Philip and Tom this morning and the clarification they have when they crossed over and never suffer ever again. Mental species everywhere think they know everything about life on a screen. Actors all over the world that hasn't got mental telepathy. Yes, people moan you in telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu. Don't understand the light bulb idea, the picture that tells you 1,000 words with the universe language. You see in the movie Luminous, a drug can show you how mental you are. A drug can show you how mental you are and how your mentality cannot teach you nothing and prevent you from the truth. And that's why Christ said, think outside the mind. Think instinctively outside the mind, and you can do what I can and more. So what does everyone do? Raise their consciousness with the IQ, with artificial intelligence, and think critically. That's what they say. Well, what did they say in the Matrix documentary? Those that think and tune out of the program, because everyone's programmed into their mind with mentality, in a personality, with amnesia, trapped in a reincarnation trap, and keep coming back like a fool. And amnesia means they don't know. So they keep coming back and dying prematurely from stress-related diseases. When we can do a genetic repair kit with longevity to preserve DNA for 1,000 years in the crossover. Christ said he has a kingdom waiting for you, and you can see it. When you go through the transformation and you cross over, and you'll get that confirmation and you'll see it yourself. You see the brand new timeline we're coming into with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge. We're everything is so perfect. Well, we bear the right fruit and have the right power to command nature with God-given gift, to be in the Christ image and do everything where I was going to more. And believe me, 98% of people is going to fail this because they're trapped too deep into their mentality and they will not go through the 40-day pass to stop unnatural selection and change into natural selection with the book Freedom by Jimmy gives the Holy Grail of life, and when I breathe in the Holy Grail of life. 98% of people won't do this. Even my followers, they just come here and think it's going to be handed with notification on lap like fast food because they're mentally insane. They actually think it's going to be a God-given gift that's going to be given to them in a little present, right? Just like notifications. They don't come back here and learn nothing because they follow notifications, because they're lazy, stupid, and dormant and can't breathe the right oxygen, and the neurons collapse, the tree of life, and they can't create the second secretion, and they can't use the sixth sense that opens the progenitor genes with their ancestors tools to do what I can and more. Remote viewing. Deja vu, to predict the future, prevent what's going to happen. Dimensional thinking. Thinking outside the mind to master the mind and use 100% of your brain. With the God-given gift that God gave you, coded in your own DNA with genetic memory and a genetic process with your ancestors tools. So we cross you over in a 40-day fast with When I'm Breathing, the Holy Breath of Life, and the book Freedom by Jimmy Gibbs, the Holy Grail of Life. 98% of people won't go into this, and they'll never make it. Trust me, we know the truth, and we can prevent what's going to happen if you go into this.